the 90s, Playmates Toys made the deepest line of Star Trek action figures in history. My name's Keith, and I'm a collector working towards owning all 284. I've been a Trek fan for almost 35 years, and most people are sick of me talking about it. But somehow I've convinced my old friend Mike to review them with me on Look at My Star Trek Toys! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Look at My Star Trek Toys. It has been an exciting week here in Star Trek Toydom. We've had Playmates announce their next line of figures for Prodigy. We had a video about that. If you missed it, just check back in our feed. And today we have another round of what seem to be like increasingly amazing custom figures that you are sending to me, and I'm so excited to show them here to you and to you, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Before we drop the ball, Keith, the community at large has overwhelmingly praised you for your summation of what makes Star Trek Star Trek. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch our last Playmates announcement for the Prodigy line. I challenged Keith to explain to me what is the unifying goo that holds the Star Trek universe together, dark matter, if you will, the Higgs boson of it all. And you did a great job. We've also got some great responses from you in our YouTube comments. Keep them coming. We appreciate. If you'd like to send us an email, you can do that. Look at mystartrektoys@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram at Star Trek Toys. And of course, you can always comment here on the YouTubes. Keith, the past couple of customs shows that we did before we went to the play sets, we were really digging it. So excited to see what you have in store today. I've done my due diligence in not looking at the screenshots.
Yes, no, and I'm very excited about it. We have some new folks, some returning friends, and a lot of really cool information coming in about these new toys. So I say, without any further ado, why don't we take a look at the first one? So we're going to see 3 figures here from an artist named George Alexandris. Starting with one of our requested figures right from the very beginning, and that is a non-effed up version of Riker from his regular duty uniform seasons 3 through 7, which of course Playmates never made. And but guess what? George made one here, and by adapting his Series 1 figure, doing some incredible work. So if we, before we talk about it, let's go to ToyCam and take a look at the original figure, and you can see why the differences here are so amazing. So this is the sort of the fucked up Riker, right, with his uniform all torn, and basically the figure, but it's Series 1. He's got the big hands, he's whatever. But we were always wondering, why is he all torn up? What did he lose a battle with? Now, there's a couple of things that George does. So now that we've seen the original figure, let's go look at what George did. First off, the first thing you note, obviously, it's the uniform's not all torn up, which is great, and I very much appreciate it. But he's done something that I think really, really adds to the figure, and that is he has done a full repaint after clearly sanding down the distressed parts of the uniform, but repainted it in a matte paint, which really makes a big difference in terms of the realism there. I think it looks so much better. So he repainted the entire figure. You can see the hair's been repainted, the face, the skin, and the uniform itself. So it's not just a standard repaint of the uniform. As well as, I think it looks like he went in and did some repaint on the phaser and on the tricorder itself, which is really, really cool. That's the next one, Mike. We're not looking at that one yet.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, God damn it, Mike!
Oh, so it was only the first...
The first...
Okay.
Yeah, the first 2. But it's interesting that you didn't notice the difference. So I'm gonna quiz you. When we get to the next figure, what's going on there? Why is it different? Because it is different.
Well, it's a shooty shoot, that's for sure.
Well, yes. I mean, in terms of the the phaser and such. But if you look at the phaser here, I think that George has done some detail work on that. I mean, goodness, the absolute specificity and detail in that painting. I can't imagine doing anything that intricate with my hands. It's very, very impressive. So, so Mike, what do you think?
It goes to show just how far the little details go. We've
Yeah.
seen the non-effed up Riker before with just a paint job and a little bit of molding clay or what have you. But here, like you said, the sanding to even out the surface, the matte paint really adds. You would be hard pressed to convince me this wasn't a high priced figurine you purchased. I
Yeah.
mean, it just is so good, and even like the painting to be as specific. There's no bleed. There's the line between black and red there is absolutely perfect, and I think you might have mentioned this, Keith, but to me the hair looks different too. The hair looks super well done and also really highly detailed. Was there a change to the hair as well?
I think so. I think that he may have sculpted in a little bit more detail in the hair. But here's another thing that I think is remarkable in the detail. So if we go back to Toy Cam, let me just show you around his collar, right? There is a red stripe in the actual uniform, but in the figure itself, there's no way they could get the red stripe around his collar.
Mm.
Along and the pips are sort of there's not a lot of detail there, but if you go to his figure, you will see that he has actually been able to paint just the tiniest little seam around the collar there, which really does just again details, like you said, details, details, details.
Speaking of details, Keith, we should tell the people, as Keith and I are working on some of our, bumping up our production values, we've decided to shoot Toy Cam 8 millimeters like the Zapruder film.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's doing that. See, now that I can't for the life of me figure out why that's why that looks so bad
8 millimeters might have
today.
been being a little.
I don't know why
oversold
that
it.
we're working on it. Who knows? It just I even like upgraded the iPhone that I'm using oh, for goodness sake, I give up. All right.
Maybe
Well, let us move forward and take a look at the next one. So, Mike, you have now looked at this figure. Tell me what's different about this new figure.
Oh, some would say he's become the GOAT.
He has become the GOAT because this is not William Riker, first officer of the
Thomas.
Starship Enterprise. This is Thomas Riker, his evil twin transporter accident, who identifies himself by having a goatee and not the full beard. But in this episode of Deep Space Nine, he begins, spoiler alert, pretending to be William Riker in order to get up to some nefarious Maquis business. So, in order to make this figure, George had to sand off the beard to make it just a goatee, which is, and doing all the things that we talked about the other figure, and all the great things that he did. But there's another detail that is here that is also remarkable to be able to pull off, and that is, you'll
The
note,
insignia.
that's right, the communicator. By the time he shows up on Deep Space Nine, the Federation has updated their communicators from the Next Generation era to the later Deep Space Nine and movie era. And so, in order to make this figure, he had to make all of the adaptations from the previous figure, but then change the communicator on it. And I believe he did that with sanding and painting as opposed to swapping out the torso. But either way, I mean, my goodness, like you said, details, details, details. It looks amazing.
He's also got some nefarious eyes happening. I don't know if that was probably on the figure before, but I mean, it looks a little He's giving
Looks
me
like he's
some.
up to no good.
Yeah.
I mean, and those
A little
those
scamp, a
piercing,
rapscallion, if you will.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Riker's going to be a little scamp, regardless of whether he's the evil twin or the non-evil twin, because Riker's going to Riker, folks. That's just what's going to happen. There might even be a little seduction here in this episode. So, Mike, when we watch Deep Space Nine together, I'm excited when we get to this one. This one is super super fun. So again, it looks like clearly there's been some paint done on the phaser and the phaser beam itself to give it a more realistic, less toyish.
Yeah, and I can't
feel
explain
to it.
why it is, Keith. Maybe I think you agree. I think you said before. You can tell how much I listen to you. So there's a profession. I think I prefer. I understand why they have the glossy paint on the toys, but there's something about the matte that works more for me.
Well,
I guess because you don't walk around with shiny clothing generally.
Well, you don't, and I actually don't know exactly what that would be. I would imagine that that is partly due to being able to withstand being played with. I bet the shiny coat gives it some protection that you don't get in a matte. Obviously, with this matte paint that's been done, you can't like throw it around the room and play with it because that's going to scrape, and this is a to be displayed for adults, clearly. So anyway, really cool two Riker figures. I wanted to put them back to back because it was just really cool to just note the tiny little detail differences. So our next figure is a figure of Dr. Catherine Pulaski. And you'd be like, hey, wait a minute. We have Playmates did a Pulaski figure. You don't need to do a new one. But yes, you do if you want it to be screen accurate. Because if we go to Toy Cam, our 8mm, 8-bit
Cam.
Our 8-bit, that's right, 2 frames a second. You can see here that this is not the actual uniform that Pulaski wore, because she sort of wore the little scanty deal. And so this is the figure that Playmates put out. But you can see here, George's figure, the color, and again, with the science uniforms, the blue color to green, it was greener in real life, but it came out a little more blue on the screen. But this color blue that we see here from George definitely is much more screen accurate, as well as having the sort of scant feel that she wore there, which I believe is a repurposing of a dress uniform, and then some sculpting on top of it. But you can also note that the pips are in the right. I'm pointing at my screen, like you can see. The pips are in the right place, and it's an obvious repaint of the head, which is the Pulaski head. But the detail and the shadowing in the hair, right? So if you go back to Toy Cam, you can see on the original figure, the hair was just a flat plastic. And so it was just going for details in shadows, right? But in George's figure, he has gone in and painted the detail into the hair there, and it makes such a big difference, as well as a repaint of the face, and the matte color that we're looking at. And actually, keep that side picture there, because there is a cutout in Pulaski's uniform that is not in the dress uniform. So whether or not he began with one of the dress uniforms or built this onto the other figure, he definitely had to address that and change that to make it screen accurate. It's remarkable work. It really, really is.
Yeah, the color just pops off the screen. There's almost a texture to it that's really amazing in the wardrobe and in the hair, like you mentioned. That paint is just it always a paint. What you can do with just paint and a little shadowing and highlighting is really excellent. And I love, Keith, that you've done with all the custom work, and we've done our best to shout it out. But I'm glad that it's there on the screen. This is artistry, and it's really cool to see. Yeah,
no, this is George Alexandris. Really, really fine work. And with the matte painting of the uniform, which actually makes it look like fabric, as opposed to plastic. There are figures in the Playmates line once they went to a larger scale, and there's some other ones where they actually make it fabric uniforms. So it's like a Barbie doll where you put the uniform on. But frankly, it's always ill-fitting and doesn't look very good. And you understand why. I mean, how it's really difficult to make something that small, something that fitting, where this, I feel, really splits the difference. It looks like fabric, but it's not fabric, so it fits well and looks screen accurate. So love the way he did that. So that's awesome. Thank you for sending those, George. We will see more from him as time goes by, which is great. I have so many. I was just I prepped 2 episodes today, and I'm like, I got through 10% of the amazing things that I want to show that are in my email box. It's gonna take a while, folks, but I promise we're gonna get to them. So we are going to move on to a new friend and another new artist, and that is Matt Rudawsky. And we are going to take a look at one of the series that we haven't talked about yet, Lower Decks, which Playmates has not made any figures for, nor have they announced any figures. They announced some from Prodigy, but here we are with some Lower Deck figures. And so there's just a bunch of them all here. This is the bridge crew from
That
Lower Decks.
Is cool.
So many, we'll talk through each of them. But we have Captain Carol Freeman, Commander Jack Ransom, Dr. Ta'ana, Lieutenant Shax, and Lieutenant Andy Billups here with these figures. So Playmates never made this uniform, never made these figures, and they never made anything based on a cartoon. So not only did Matt have the difficulty of creating basically completely new figures with completely new uniforms, stylistically, you have to hit animation styles. So that changes the shape of the face and the shape and all of these little details here. So my goodness, look at the incredible detail work and repainting. So he said about these things, we all have questions. How the heck did you do this? So he is a professional artist, but did very little sculpting prior to this. Most of these figures, the base of them are from the Generations line, which makes sense because the uniform was closest to that, including the sort of seam that you see. The uniforms on Lower Decks feel like they were partially inspired by the unused uniforms from Star Trek Generations, which they did make figures out of, which were sort of halfway between the next gen uniforms and the Wrath of Khan with the wrap over. So it makes perfect sense why he would start with these figures as the baseline for these figures. So certainly got a good head start with that. And you'll note they're definitely from Generations due to the lack of articulation in the arms and legs, which we have talked about ad nauseum. But that didn't change the incredible amount of work and sculpting and paint to create 5 completely different characters. One of them feline, one of them's a cat lady, with a coat that didn't exist in any of the Playmates figures. I wonder if the coat is freshly sculpted or whether that's an adaptation of maybe one of the Crusher with a coat. It looks like it's been freshly made. But yeah, Mike, you talked for a while.
Marveling at it. I really think it's interesting the way he was able to capture the eyes, because those really denote the sort of cartooniness of them. And yet, I'm really the 5 o'clock shadow, such an identifying characteristic of that drawing.
Character.
And so that character is clearly that is translated to the figures. Also neat, Keith, and we talked a little bit about this, about the separation of the toys when these new lines come out. But just looking at these, which is kind of a preview into what the cartoonification of the toy line, it's interesting how well the non-humanoid cartoony characters fit with the more humanoid characters in the line.
Right.
It's not as sort of stark as you might expect. So I think that's really cool. Really kind of interesting. And also, I dig these uniforms. They give you a futuristic vibe with the stark right angles that I kind of dig.
Well, and they're very in keeping with the tradition of Star Trek, and this takes place in a timeline that basically is right after the original movie series. Mm-hmm. So Riker is still running around being a captain at this point, and there's some great crossovers that come on the show. So yeah, I mean, look at the whiskers that they're able to do on Dr. Tana. Like, it's
even check
cool.
out the sort of what's the character on the far left in the screenshot?
Andy Billups,
the older gentleman.
Oh, you mean the far right?
Yes.
Yes.
The
screenshot. Yeah, sorry. Yes, that's Lieutenant Shax, who's a Klingon.
Yeah, check out his ear and the detailing in the ear of the sort of ornamental pieces of the ear.
Oh, he's not. No, he's not. I don't know. I felt like he was Klingon, but he might be Bajoran. I think he's Bajoran. I take it all back. I was never paying that close of attention. It's clearly Bajoran. But yeah, so he has the Bajoran earring going on there. But like, it's all the battle damage, and he's the security officer. That's why I was thinking Klingon.
Really cool.
But yeah, I mean, just like so cool, and the detail work, getting the hems of the pants right. Also using it's like a semi-gloss, so it sort of matches the original figures, but it's not quite as glossy as the original figures. Certainly the black feels more of a matte feel. Really incredible work from Matt Rudawsky. So we're going to see more from Matt and more from Lower Decks. Let us take a look at our next figure. Who is it? It's Badgey, which was a hilarious gag that they had on there. It was in the holodeck. They had a helpful instruction badge, and of course, the holodeck, everything's going to go bad and evil. So the helpful, it basically Clippy from Microsoft Office from like 20 years ago. Badgey, and of course went evil. So here in the screenshot, he set it up, and there's a mirror there so you can see. On one side, it's good Badgey. On the other side, it's evil Badgey. So you can see in the mirror shot the Jekyll and Hyde. Not only is that hilarious, but it's incredibly creative and well shot there to represent all of that. Just so cool. And here's my favorite part. That's his daughter's version.
Oh my
in the
God,
little box
stop
there.
Being so cute, community. OMG.
It's unbelievably cute, and I love it. And it's, this is one of the fun things about having an animated comedy show is you can do ridiculous fun stuff, like an evil Clippy here on in the holodeck. So just really excellent, fine work. We're going to see more from Matt's Lower Decks work in our next episode. So stay tuned next week. We're going to have more on that. But, let us move forward with some amazing figures from our friend Chris at Retro Star Trek Customs. And take a look at a Gul Dukat figure. I mean, it's hard to describe because this is not an adaptation. This is a completely built from the ground up new figure of Gul Dukat. This one is 6-inch scale, not 4.5. But this is Chris's work doing 3D modeling, 3D printing, then hand painting.
Yeah, I mean the 3D print and the 3D model is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm like mesmerized. But the detail in the painting and shadowing is absolutely insane, all the way down to the hands, the neck veins, just incredible.
It is stunning work and an utterly new figure. And I've been chatting with Chris, and it's like Honestly, it's too bad he also doesn't have the rights to the Star Trek and should be mass producing these figures. And he has dozens of them that all I wish there were a line of his figures out there that I could go to the store and buy. Because they are all articulated. These aren't just statues. I'll show you in a later episode like how these all fit together and are articulated, and it's just jaw dropping. So, and it's just as a point of reference. Let's go to Toy Cam and see the original Gul Dukat that they made. And, look, in Playmates' defense, these were designed to be mass produced. They had to make 200,000 of these, and they had to be, cheaper to build, quicker to paint, easier to paint. But, obviously there's no comparison
Right.
to what, to what you can do. And also, look, the technology is different now with the 3D modeling. So he's literally building this on software, 3D printing it and painting it, assembling it. It's just unbelievable work. Star Trek, and I say this, we're a Playmates show, right? We're here for Playmates. We love it. But Playmates, I think you have somebody you need to hire, or else he's going to start his own line.
I know that it's sort of outside. No, it's not really outside the purview of the show, which is ever expanding. Much like the universe, Keith, it's ever expanding. I would love to see I would love to put this next to the render. Like, I'd like to see what it looks like in the computer. If there's a way you can, like, maybe screenshot that or send us some sort of vector of that.
We might be working towards a very special episode that will walk us through the entire process.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well, in that case, prayers answered.
With some special figures. So, spoiler alert, there's some things I'm really excited about.
Okay.
Anyway, let me tell you what else I'm excited about. Our next figure, because it's definitely in my top 10 of figures that I desperately wish that Playmates would make, and that is a General Martok figure from Deep Space Nine. Look at that, Mike.
What?
Just look at the look on Mike's face.
I mean, I'm just like, from the shot, obviously I'm not holding it in my hand, you could tell me that was material and textured on the sleeves, and I would believe you.
Yeah.
That is really nuts.
I mean, the level of detail and paint work. And so here's one. This is against the 4.5-inch Worf from the Target exclusive line, which we are going to do with a repaint. Now, the original one did not have the paint of the shoulder detail in there, so you can see them both together there. So you can see how well his completely custom figures fit in with the originals, which again speaks to just holy crap. And Martok, I think, is one of the coolest, baddest ass characters in all of Star Trek, and I'm was gutted that Playmates hasn't made one yet, and I certainly hope they will. But if you look at that screenshot versus this, it's perfect. It's incredible.
So good. And the halfy gloves, the detailing on the collars, the eye. I mean, the makeup work, the makeup.
Makeup. But that's it. But he's replicating
good.
Makeup. And we saw this with the paint jobs that George was doing too. He's replicating the makeup they used on the show. So it kind of is makeup. And it is I don't have words.
I'm interested once again. Keith and I are pretty clear on the fact that we do not work in this vertical, so I'm not sure how any of this works. But I'm curious. Clearly, digital molding and digital printing, 3D printing, has revolutionized the detail with which we can print out one of these heads. However,
Right.
obviously you can't scale 3D printing to mass market, right? So you still have to use the old mold system. I'm wondering, how is that technology advanced? Could you mold that, or would you lose a ton of the detail when you tried to mass market it?
I feel like you probably I bet you could mold that. I think what would be really difficult to replicate would be the paint job.
Yeah.
I feel like but I don't know. I mean, it's a good question for Chris, and maybe we'll ask him at some point, or any of you out there. I mean, it's I said this before, but like the talent that's out there is just jaw dropping. And
Well, it really comes down to artistry and creativity, right? So we've clearly seen folks who have gone the full 3D printer route and incredibly and put together a piece like this. And we've had some people who've done it a little more DIY, and both
sculpting by hand.
Yeah, both
I mean, it's
are utterly flabbergasting to me, and my respect level is through the roof for everyone who even goes down this vein, because I can't even draw you a stick figure, Keith.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, let us look at one more figure from Chris. We're going to see a lots more of them. And then Eden would let you go on with your day. Perhaps we will. But
right,
if not,
don't worry. I clearly this is
because we can throw her on to next episode.
Keith,
that's really not.
She should be here.
We're gonna build suspense. But while you're doing that, I'm going to set up the toy cam, or 4 frames a second. Here we go. So, we've seen from at Star Trek Customs some of like the wild and crazy figures, but he also redoes a lot of the original figures in his style and his way. So what we have here is a B'Elanna Torres from Voyager, done. A complete rebuild 3D print. It's not adapting the original figure. And again, you're able to have so much more detail than they put into the original figure. So like we've done before, let's go to Toy Cam and just compare this to the original figure. And you can just see, just the extraordinary level of detail that he's able to do. Again, in Playmates' defense, mass production has to be done much more cheaply and much more quickly, but you have a lot more details in the uniform, in the face, in the communicator, in the pins, in the everything. That opposite and ostensibly a pretty good figure. I mean, this is a perfectly good figure of Torres. But when we go to the original, or we go to Chris's work, you can see what you're able to accomplish with the techniques that he's using. Again, with the painting and the makeup, we talk about. You're able to have there that, what you can do with hands. It looks extraordinary, and tiny little details. But we've been saying all episode, details. The little bit of purple peeking out of the sleeve. Showing you the sort of turtleneck undershirt underneath the main jacket there, just adds all the little details, all the little stuff that just brings you in and makes you feel like you're truly a part of it.
And just like,
so
it's
cool.
interesting when you bring art into a 3D environment, just like on the page, or I read comics, not as much as I would like to as the olden days, Keith, but I get my fair share. And as various artists have a distinct style, I'm starting to be able to recognize the style in his pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So this is pretty awesome. Pretty cool little journey we're taking.
Really, 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 really cool. All right. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I am just humbled by the talent level of the artists out there who are putting their unbelievable talents into making toys for like stuff that I like. It's crazy and super cool and super fun. Very excited to keep showing them to you. We're going to have plenty more of these, plenty more of the displays, and I promise we're going to get back to the original line soon as well. I just need to go and shoot some of them. But super excited about that. We have more unboxings to do. Mike, we have so many exciting things to show you here on our show. If you haven't done it already, give us a subscribe and give us a like. You know, we obviously behind the curtain, in order for us to make money doing this, we have to hit benchmarks of subscribers. So every time you subscribe, it helps us make our show. And it definitely is makes a big difference. So, Mike, any final thoughts?
Yep, we ain't trying to make a living. We're just trying to offset the hour of time during our real jobs where we put a thing on the calendar that says meeting. So we can shoot this show, just this part. We're having a blast. Can you tell?
You spend an hour.
Yeah, wait till post. Guess what? We're having a blast. If you, as Keith said, we're not asking for any money yet, but we are asking you to help us out. Just like and subscribe, maybe tell a friend. Better yet, send us your customs. If are you inspired? Maybe it's your first time out and you're like, I can do this. Look at my Star Trek Toys at gmail.com. Send us our way. Keith's loving responding. I'm loving responding down below. Chat, praise, check out. We'll post links to all of the artists you saw today, to their work, where it can be seen on the World Wide Web. Check it out. We're so excited. We'll do it again next week. What do you say?
That sounds good. Till then, this has been...
Look at my Star Trek toys!